Hi, this is Dr. Scott, and today we're going to get into some of our our Dr. Scott short questions. And I'm going to read you the question. I'm going to show you a little video right after that. We'll do some other, bouncing back and forth with this. Becky asks in a beautiful and amazing question. And I apologize if you hear me cough a lot more than I normally do. I got super sick. I'm just barely getting over it, and the headache's still there, pretty heavy. So you know how it is with that too. Okay, so I'm going to put this on screen, but I'm going to read the question out loud. And Becky, I'm going to do this in a two-part video. I want to first tell you I love you. You are a gem. Very few people are as good as this person in ways you can't imagine. And I'm going to cut off a couple spots in here because I don't want to give away too much with her. So I own a small accounting business. We do a accounting firm. We do payroll, bookkeeping, and taxes for small businesses. Good work. Okay. My question is when the IRS goes down, what kind of reporting will there be for small businesses? Now, this is a really important question. I will hit that one on the second one. So hold on to that one, Becky. Okay. Um, I'm a, I've been doing this a long time. I have two young employees though. Will I be able to keep them working? And I want to keep them working with that too. So it's a kind of a two-part of question in there with that too. Was hoping to not have another tax season. You got to catch how difficult that question actually is, and I'm gonna explain that in a second. It's impossible to deal with the IRS in the last 3 years. Guys, you have no idea. I've been hearing this all the time, and you guys keep saying, oh, the IRS is alive. The IRS is alive. Here is a tax professional who has to talk to these idiots all the time, telling me exactly what I've been hearing over and over and over again. Okay. Oh, God. If you ever wanted to get on camera with me, Becky, I'd do it in a second. Okay. Have done this kind of work since 1995. Very, very experienced person. Okay. Becky, a couple things, and I want to back off here. I want to show you a guy's a little tiny TikTok video. Listen, this is a good person here that's doing this TikTok video, but he kind of doesn't get it. Sometimes when you hear questions as deep as Becky's are with someone who knows what the flock she's talking about here, you get someone who kind of puts up something and just goes like, burn it all down, and I get the idea, but even he's not fully getting it here too. So let me show you what I mean.
Canada and Mexico are being implemented this Saturday, and I'm super pumped, bro. You're about to find out how awesome tariffs are. I'm so jacked about tariffs, and it's really simple. Like, the whole objective is just to not increase prices on Canada and Mexico. It's to leverage our economy because they're relying on us more than we're relying on them to get something that obviously we need, which is a secure border. So this Saturday, you're about to see exactly what you saw with Colombia. Urgency from the government, urgency with at least Canada. Canada's been trying to actually pass some laws where they're, already promising $1 billion for border security, according to the CBC, which is their kind of like liberal.
And I'm cutting him off there, but again, there's nothing wrong with him in and of himself. Okay, don't misunderstand me there. But he doesn't understand the depth of the question. I mean, of what actually is happening. If you just said, I'm so excited about, tariffs, there's a lot more to the story than most people get. And it's like they don't have the full information to be able to answer it. It kind of reminds me of this one here. Like you're trying to answer a question of an authority with that too. Again, this guy was not being bad here. He was talking only about tariffs. He goes off in another area, and I didn't even show you the rest of it. But it kind of reminds me of this one here.
No, not I. All right. She started it, all right? Because she was like, I hate my job. I'm going to burn this mother down. And I said, you better not. You better not.
She said it was an electrical fire.
It was. It was a total electrical fire. It was like the switches had spark.
You're just like, What? Wait, what? I mean, and I think most people barely understand what actually is happening in the background. So let me show you a first one here. Bring this up on the screen here. How we get here, and most people who look at this the systems, and they're stepping into what's going on with the IRS here, what's going to happen, and how it works. And I'll even show you how big media people really don't get it. They're worse than anyone else out there because they don't understand the full-on implications of what happens to the IRS. And I was talking about this with Mark Z last night with that too. Okay, so comes a little bit from this executive order, but not all the way. He has, I mean, Trump has been talking about this, and again, this was in the 21st of the month here, and he's talking about any discrimination and merit-based opportunities. Becky, this is a little bit of some of the stuff that needs to happen. I want to get into a little. But first off, he talks about, discrimination practices and illegal DEI and all these other stuff. But then he kind of starts to pivot, and pivot in areas that are pretty darn fascinating. So I'm going to pull off going down here a little ways here. And what he's talking about is that the OMB are going to get involved with these illegal processes that are just ridiculous in there. And he goes farther, and I got to bring up the little spot here. He's talking about how the private sector works inside of the issues of the world. And the private sector have been messing, or the public sector has been messing with the private sector. And this is why they spend so much money. So then he pivots again. He pivots into another kind of idea. And oops, let's arrow this one up. So you see American First trade policy. Okay, that's where this one guy was talking about, and he was kind of, missing some of the areas. Now, I want you to catch a couple parts that I think are fascinating in here. And if you knew anything about the financial policies of how this is run, let me explain. I'll pull off the screen here for a second. Okay, so the Fed starts in 1913. And they've been screwing around. There's a video that I'll try to pull for you guys sometime that Trump was talking about this very, very recently. Now, 1871, Congress passes a very strange policy, and it's talking about the Constitution. And all they do is change the verbs and adverbs and adjectives inside of this. Now, you might go, what are you talking about? Instead of the Constitution for the United States, they change it to the Constitution of the United States. When they're talking about the Constitution and they talk about democracy, you think something different because we're sitting over here going, yeah, but I'm reading the original policy, but they're reading their own stuff. And the slight tweaks to this have been screwing up situations for a long time. Trump starts talking about from 1870 to 1913 and how tariffs were the primary driver, and they were actually a driver long before that too, but they were a primary driver. One thing that most people don't know about the IRS was actually started in 1862. And you go, really? That even Lincoln, now listen, I love Lincoln for a lot of things, but this is one area I definitely disagree. So I don't know where he got pushed to pull in an accounting service, but he did. He created an internal accounting service in essence. Now, they legalized it in 1913 in the 16th Amendment. At the same time, they added the Fed. And he was talking about what Trump was talking about overall is that they had a massive amount of money. And in 1887, they started to say, what are we going to do with this money? And, normally if you get that much money, you should be giving it back to the people, right? Oh no, that's when they started to change everything. And we had bank runs, which led, the later 90s all the way into 1907, major bank run. And then 1913 is the initialization of the Fed. Now, fast forward to 1981, Volcker is the Fed chairman. Now, when President Reagan, and you can always watch this, it's really interesting. And Trump has never done this. What's happened over the years, the first time I ever really personally noticed it was President Bush, the second President Bush, right? George W. Bush, not Herbert Walker. And after, inauguration, he does a whole bunch of other things on the 20th, you kind of see them, you see many of the presidents, one of their first official visits is to the Fed. And it's like they get their marching orders, and that's exactly what happens to those people. And so President Reagan came in with his Reaganomics. And at the same time, in the late 70s through the 70s, because there was a bankruptcy event that happens in the oil crisis in 1971 that actually changed us when we went off of the gold standard from an international phase, and gold started to rise dramatically. But inflation was going also through the roof because it was fully unhinged from any of the ability from the American dollar. So gold was going up because it was allowed to let the idiots make a lot of money. Okay. Now, Reagan says all these different statements in some of his initial policy points. And Volcker comes back from his meetings, and they would have these meetings in Wyoming, and he would say things like, "I care not what any president might say about the economy. We're the ones who have in essence the joystick on the economic policies of America." And you're like, dang, dude, right? Okay. So that is some of that. I mean, I'm trying to give you a little historical backdrop of why it happens there, okay? So going back into this tariff thing, well, it's exciting for this one guy, which I agree, it's exciting with some ways with that thing too. But what most people don't know is they're trying, it's like
Out in the sockets and
it's like our Jack Black here, who's trying to answer a question by an authority. He's just going like, wait, what happened here, right? They don't fully get it. Okay, let me explain a little bit more what happens in the trade American policy. So why I said all that part about the Fed is, notice who is not involved in this America First trade policy. This is all the financial vehicles of this. You got the Secretary of State, okay. Treasury, okay. Defense, Commerce, HSA, the OMB boy, oh my gosh, and he was killer. The trade representative, because we're talking about international trade, I want you to think about BRICS. We'll have a conversation about that one too sometime in the future here. Economic assistant to economic policy, people, and trade and manufacturing. Wait, where's the Fed dude? Nowhere in here is the Fed. It's because the Fed, in essence, is dead. And I'll show you a couple videos in a second that they really don't get how dead the Fed really is. Okay, so he starts talking about the trade policy's critical component to national security. Wait a second, how does national security have anything to do with the economic issues? Because if you're taken over economically, you can't run a country, which is the whole reason why fake Biden had to be in for 4 years of torture for all of us, right? Now, I want to kind of push you to a couple areas that I think are fascinating. He starts pushing on different codes that are out there. Number one, in section B, and this is a better one than probably the other one there too, but it's a little related. Treasury will investigate the feasibility and recommend the best methods for designing and building the IRS to collect tariffs, duties, and other foreign revenues. Now, I want you to think about Becky for a second. Her primary driver in her business, one of her massive primary drivers in business, and the one thing that happens to business owners is that we pay for taxes. Now, if you guys pay on a to do a business, I mean, to do your personal taxes. I mean, maybe some of you guys pay, 50 or $100 to, at most, for the most part, to do your taxes. Some people can do it really online because they got easy taxation kind of thing. I mean, they do like TurboTax and they pay $25, right? Most personal taxes are not that hard. But when you get into a business tax, basically it's like a $400 to $700 tax, a bill that you get, because there's so much more extra work for that, private accountant like Becky here. Okay. And so, but here's the point. The national driver, the one thing that makes money in the nation, is the IRS. The IRS brings in $4.7 trillion a year. If we're $2 trillion underneath budget, why would you shut off the one valve that brings you in the most amount of money? And that's why most people have no idea what the flock Trump is doing here. He then goes on and does one of the other cool areas that I believe is a Nasara conversation. He goes, we're out of balance with everyone else's currency. We are going to see a balance of currency, by the way, in the near future, which means everyone's currency is going to balance, which is called the revaluation. Oh, baby, it's going to be some cool stuff in there. And we're going to see a balanced system in there. Okay. Now, we get into these conversations and you say like, okay, got it, Scott. I see what you're saying a little bit here, but let's show you what they actually can do here a little bit more closely. So listen to this one.
And as fast as we can. I've been pushing for the one big beautiful bill, much like what President Trump has been pushing. We're working as hard and as fast as we can. I've been pushing for the one big beautiful bill, much like what President Trump has been pushing for. In this bill, we can do his immigration policies that need to be passed into law, his energy policies that need to be passed.
He's talking about HR 25, the tax policy that Carter has brought up here, well, he's talking, this is Smith, but Carter, I'm going to talk about him in a second.
Into law, budget cuts, and also to extend his expiring provisions of the tax code. We should not kick the can down the road. Do it now. There are over 26.
See, and even in here, he goes, let's extend the tax code, cuts. And again, he doesn't get it either. Maybe this guy does, maybe this guy doesn't, but he's not explaining it. And you got a Fox Business dude who doesn't understand the whole process of what Trump is actually doing either.
6 million small businesses that are making decisions now based on the uncertainty of what their tax bill will look like next year.
Like, wait a second, your tax bill for next year. And see, again, we got two people who are talking back and forth who are supposed to be smart talking heads, but they don't get it either, right? Okay, let's pull off this one here, and I want to show you this video.
Carter has introduced a bill called the Fair Tax Act. It calls for abolishing the IRS and rewriting the current tax code. The Congress...
Hey, dude didn't even get it here. I mean, look at his face. I want you to watch his face really closely. Don't watch Carter when he gets on the screen. Watch this dude's face, because he doesn't believe it can happen.
From Georgia joins me live here. You want to abolish the IRS as part of the fair tax code.
Do you see even the interchange in there? They're like, this can't be real. This can't happen. This is a dream. This is, and I hear this all the time. I hear this all the time, especially from business people, especially from people who are plugged into the systems, because they've been so plugged in for such a long time frame. It kind of reminds me of A Christmas Story, that 1940s movie, and the dad is always, they plugged in all of their Christmas things into the outlet, and this one outlet, and it always blows the circuit out, right? And see, they've been so plugged in the systems, they don't see it, right? Listen a little bit more.
You were a member of Congress back in 2017 when Republicans went about this the first go around. They didn't go down that that line, didn't go down that road, Congressman. Instead, they put in the tax code that's going to have to be taken up here later this year. Republicans didn't do this in 2017. To be realistic, Congressman, and you know this, they're not going to do it now, your proposal. So what do you think?
They're not going to do it now. He is preparing the audience to say this lunacy with this too. And you got Carter over here, and here's his response.
I think the outcome is here, and is Congressman Bacon right that whatever happens, this is going to be really hard?
Washington, D.C. used to be about big ideas. I don't know what happened. The fair tax is a big idea. Doing away with unelected bureaucrats who have more power over your paycheck than you do, I think that's a big idea. I think it's an idea we ought to follow. I mean, after all, with the fair tax, it's simple. It's practical. If you make $40,000 a year, you'll take home $40,000 a year. If you're going to buy a boat, you're going to pay taxes on it. And look, everybody talks about the wealthy. They don't pay their own fair share of taxes. Well, the wealthy are going to buy a yacht. And let me tell you, I'm not buying a yacht. I'll probably buy a John boat. And the taxes on a yacht, they're a lot more than they are on a John boat.
So in the HR Bill 25, and again, guys, you haven't seen some of my videos. If you're looking at it for the first time, I have talked about the death of the IRS since 2020. I have numerous videos where I didn't just talk about that, but I would talk about every little thing, and then inside there, I would do classic conversations about this particular thing. And most people just, they thought I was a complete moron for bringing this stuff up. And now it's actually happening. The HR Bill 25 says, not just says abolish the IRS. And Trump goes, well, External Revenue Service, a brilliant statement, by the way. Then they bring up the other conversation of a national sales tax. It is literally in the wording of NASARA. It is so deep in the wording. If you aren't excited about that, man, you're like losing your mind here. And it talks about, then it goes on about tariffs. And so, people are just looking at this and their heads are spinning. They don't know how to possibly process this. So we're going to do this as a two-part area here. And get into this quite a bit. But number one question, so I had to set the stage here, by the way, too. What Becky was talking about originally is that I own a small business in payroll, bookkeeping, and taxes. And was hoping for not another, tax season, but I want to keep my employees, going with this too. And the response is, I would say, number one, it's happening. It's gonna happen. There are two things that could easily help it to happen. Article 2 under Section 3. Go do this. Go just type in Article 2, Section 3, and it's called the President's Duties. Inside of the President's Duties, it says, if both houses or one or both houses are just critically unable to do something, and it doesn't say what exactly, that they can't come to an agreement on issues. What issues might those be? Could some of those be the IRS thing? Could other ones of those areas be Kash Patel, RFK, Tulsi Gabbard to get in their positions? Could he just, and here's what he does. He gets to dismiss them, and he dismisses them so that he can get this thing done. And it talks about only in a time of national emergency. And over and over again, go look at his executive orders. He calls them a national emergency. We have an energy national emergency. Why would you do that? Because the US dollar is based upon the petrodollar. And by the way, even when we do away the petrodollar and we move into the US note, we cannot have energy insufficiency because that actually messes with the prices of everything. Because unless you can make it in your little town and go buy it in your little town, make it fully in your little town and buy it in your little town, you're always dependent upon drivers and airplanes who drop off much of the materials that particular manufacturing facility has. And then that manufacturing facility hopefully does it throughout the nation. All of it's related to energy. And so, do you understand this whole thing is a big orchestra, and he is conducting the orchestra, and he's kind of bringing it up and saying, you come up and you go down, and he is doing that particular way of orchestrating it. And that orchestration takes time and effort. But once this thing occurs, it'll be so instantaneous, it is going to blow people's minds. So Becky, the tax thing, I do not think is going to come up. And here is my Scott prediction. Rep Carter put his little tax point backdated to January 3rd of 2025. So even if it happens X date in the near future, it gets all passed and the President Trump signs it, very, very close to happening. What happens is it backdates to everything in 2025. Now, we've already been through, as of today's date, today is the 31st, so I've actually had 2 levels of payroll because I pay twice in a month. Other people have already done at maybe 2 to 3 payrolls in this particular month. I don't know, your every other Friday kind of, system with that too. So that means taxes have been taken out. And if those taxes have been taken out, you have to give those taxes back to the people. And if you give the taxes back to the people from 2025, when April 15th comes around and you're paying not for 2025, but you're looking backward on the potential payments or actually even refunds. And see, refund doesn't mean that you pay in $10,000 of taxes and you get $1,000, refund back and you're all happy. No, you paid $10,000 in taxes. Do we have the potential for taxation, IRS taxation refund from however long we have to wait this year to what was happening last year? Do we maybe go back a couple years? No, I will tell you right now, it's not going back from all time immemorial. You're not going to see every dollar of taxation back for, a million years. Or, and some people are out there saying you're going to get taxes back from your sister and your brother and your grandma and your grandpa. I'm like going, would you calm down? If all of those died and then you're the inline inheritance, you can't get those. Okay, you have to kind of cut it off. And maybe it's the last couple years. It very well, at this point, because we're into 2025, it could very well be at least 25 and 24, because you have to deal with those 2 areas. So Becky is so cool here, and I'm going to talk more about you in my next video, but Becky is so cool about asking this. She's caring about her people, and I'm telling you, this is going to be a good thing for her in the near future, and I'm going to explain why that is the case. But guys, help me out. Would you like and subscribe? You can go to Dr. Scott Young. You can download the QFS download in there and get some more information about the QFS so you understand it fully and not what it and the things that it is not, in essence. But guys, it would really help me if you like and subscribe and makes a difference for me. But watch for this next video that's coming up here. Thanks so much.